We're looking at lesson 12.4. We're starting volumes. And just like we put the prism and the cylinders together to talk about lateral area and total surface area, so will we put them together to talk about how to find the volume for each of these. I believe that the volume is much easier than the surface areas and lateral areas, although I don't find them to be terribly difficult, but I do think that this is a step easier. Okay, so let's look at trying to understand the formula, just like we tried to understand the formula for the lateral area the other day. If you'll remember, when we talked about the lateral area, I said think about putting a rubber band, or even in class I put a string around the bottom of a prism, and then I raised that string up a certain height, and that string covered so much of the lateral area. Well, that was great because we were talking about surface, but now we're talking about volume. We're talking about how much it takes to fill something up. So keeping that same mindset, when we have a prism, we want to find the area of the base. How much space is that entire base covering? And then multiply that entire area by how high up we bring that entire area. It's like stacking pennies on top of each other. So for the volume of a prism, a right prism, we once again have uppercase B, which is the area of the base, again, chapter 11, times the height of the prism. So if you'll look at example 1, I have to identify my bases again, and the bases are always parallel polygons, parallel congruent polygons. And in this case, my base is going to be, or my bases are going to be, let's see if I can put them in blue, the triangles. So I have a right triangular prism. The area of my base, since I have a triangle, it's 1/2 the base times the height. And remember that when you have a right triangle, you can always use as your base and as your height the two legs that make the right angle. The base and the height must always be perpendicular to each other. So in this instance, I'm going to have 60 units for one of my for the area of one of my bases. Okay, so I'm just going to take one of my bases, and then I'm going to multiply that 60 by how high up I bring that 60. So I raise it up 11 units. So that's going to give me 660. Now this time we're talking about volume, so we've got depth involved, so I'm going to have cubic units here. So I have 660 cubic centimeters. Okay? Why don't you look at 1B below and try to do it. Take a pause and try to do it like we just worked example 1. Alright, I need to find my area of my bases, or my base, and I know that these are my bases. So I'm going to use one of those. They're triangles, so I'm going to have 1/2 the base times the height. So that's going to be 1/2. I've got the 9, but I don't have my other dimension here. However, I know that if this hypotenuse is 15, then this hypotenuse is 15. So to find my missing measure, let's use the Pythagorean Theorem, that 15 squared equals 9 squared plus the dimension that I'm missing squared. So if you use your calculator, 15 squared is 225. So 225 minus 81 is 144. So that's going to give me that my x is 12. So I'm going to have 1/2 9 times 12, which is 6 times 9, or 54. So my base is 54, but I raised that base 10 units. So I'm going to have 540 cubic feet. Now, on a standardized test, you might see an answer 540 square feet or 540 cubic feet. So you need to make sure you know volume. Since it's three-dimensional, you're going to have your cubic units. Now that we've looked at a couple of examples, let's look at a harder example, or one that I think you would think would be harder, and let's look at 1A. So let's pause the video and see if you can do 1A by yourself. Okay, I had to erase a little and give myself some room to work. Now we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a right pentagonal prism for 1A. So I need to find the area of my base and then multiply that times the height of my prism. Well, I see that I already have the height of my prism. My height is 8. Now, since I have a regular pentagon, the area of that pentagon is 1/2 AP. So let's see if I can plug any of those particular values in. A is given to be 3.4. That's lovely. And my perimeter, since one side is 5, and I have 5 of those, 5 times 5 is 25 for my perimeter. So now I'm going to multiply out 0.5 times 3.4 times 25 times 8, and I'm going to get 340 cubic millimeters. It would take 340 little bitty sugar cubes that are a millimeter on each side, millimeter on each side, to fill up that particular solid. Okay, let's move on. Cylinders, the same formula, the exact same formula. It's the base, the area of the base of the cylinder, times the height of the cylinder. But the area of the base, a base in a cylinder is going to always be a circle. So pi r squared times h is going to be my volume of my cylinder. We can make it a little bit more specific. So as I look at example 2, the area of my base, pi, and since this whole red line is given right there that I just blued in, since that's pointed to by 9, that means that whole thing is 9. So that means the radius is going to be 4.5 squared, and then I'm going to multiply that by 5. All right, now when I put this in here, I'm going to put 4.5 up arrow 2, and I'm going to arrow out of my exponent, and I'm going to put pi, and I'm going to carry the pi along with me to the last step. So it's going to be approximately 318.1. And again, it's in cubic measure. It's in cubic measure because we are looking at, my goodness, we're looking at volume. Okay? We're not going to do anything with Cavalieri's principle, although you can read that if you want to. Let's move on. We're not going to do obliques. So I think you're ready to get started on your assignment. Okay, again, these are not nearly as difficult, especially now that we have done the base of a regular polygon umpteen times. We've done it so many times now that I think that it's going to be a little bit more reasonable for you. Okay? So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to text me or to email me, and I'll be happy to send you an answer to your question or to give you a hint about a problem. Okay? Don't panic and wait until you get here the next class, because we want to make sure that we can get as much done in class. So let's do as much ahead of class as we can. I also wanted to remind you of when the quiz is going to be, if I can find it on here, because we're going to have a quiz over sections. Let's see if I can make this a little bit better. We're going to have a quiz, there we go, on sections 2 and 3, and that is coming up. I don't think it's the next time I see you. I think it's in 2 times, because I wanted to be able to go over that homework. Yes, it's Wednesday the 3rd. Okay, so we'll have a little quiz over sections 12.2 and 12.3. That's going to be covering lateral area and total surface area. That will be coming up on Wednesday the 3rd. Okay? All right. We'll see you in class next time.